your host, Sean Aaron, and welcome to Dem Bois Podcast. This show is a platform where trans men of color voices can be amplified as we share our transitional stories and many other issues that are relatable to trans men of color in our existence. This show is not only to amplify our voices, but to raise awareness and conversation around our lived experiences.
My next guest, I had the opportunity to sit down with Mely. Mely is a first-generation trans, non-binary, bilingual therapist located in San Diego. This was a really good episode. We talked about healing and empowerment through education, family, religion, stabilizing our mental health, and we also talked about the trans and non-binary experience. So enjoy. Hey, this is Sean Aaron. I'm the founder and executive director of Dem Bois Inc. I am also the host of Dem Bois Podcast. As you may know, Dem Bois provides financial assistance to trans men of color in order for them to obtain gender-affirming surgery. We have great news. We are currently looking for volunteers to help support our programs. Our programs include our gender-affirming surgery grant program and also our personal care package program. We personally curate packages filled with personal hygiene items. Just to name a few, things like tissue, soap, towels, toothpaste, and toothbrushes. We mail them out to trans men of color across the country who may be in need of help caring for their personal hygiene needs. We are looking for volunteers to help raise funds to support our programs. Also, we're looking for someone locally to the Bay Area to help us put all of the care packages together. If our mission is something that resonates with you and you would like to help support our work, just let us know. You can send an email to hello@dembois.org. That is HELLO@DEMBOIS.org. And we will get back to you with further details. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoy the next episode. Welcome to Dem Bois Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Aaron, he, him, his. And my next guest here is a first-generation college student, trans, non-binary, bilingual therapist. Mely, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Sean, for having me. I'm excited to be here and to be part of this podcast series that you got. I've listened to some of the episodes you've already put out and just, really inspired by the work that you're doing. So thanks for having me as a guest.
Hey, thank you for being here. I appreciate it. So where are you located, Mely?
Yeah, I'm coming from San Diego, California, occupied Kumi Island, where I was actually born and raised. So I'll share a little bit more about that as we get into things.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So how's the weather out there right now?
Oh, man, we've been going through some heat waves and it's actually feeling pretty tropical. The humidity is dense and it's hot.
Oh, wow. Okay. I've never actually been to San Diego. I've been to like Palm Springs, but never in the San Diego area. So I definitely should come visit.
Yes. Come on down. I mean, it's coastal desert, right? So you have some coastal weather, but you also have some desert weather too.
Nice.
Yeah.
So the name, I like to ask the guests this. So the name Mely, how did that name choose you?
Oh, yes. That name. So it's a shortened version of what what was, I guess, my dead name, if you will. But it's also a nickname that my mom also goes by. So my mom's name is Melania, and she goes by Doña Mely, right? That's kind of what we call our elders, is Doña or Don. And so as a kid, when I was growing up, everybody just called me Mely. And I preferred that from, before I even knew I was trans, I preferred that over my longer name. And so once I transitioned, I was like, this is like a core part of me. And like, I grew up with this name and it feels pretty neutral. It could swing one way or the other. Like, it doesn't feel gendered. I guess that's what I liked about it. And so I changed my name legally finally last year. And that's what I went with. The only difference in my name is it's just now Mely. So
gotcha. I like that.
Yeah.
Congratulations on getting your name changed too.
Yeah. It's we celebrate those milestones, right?
Yeah, definitely. I like to say that that's my second birthday, actually.
Oh, word. Okay.
Yeah. So when I finally got a chance to change my name, it was like, that's my birthday. That's when I was the new me, who I am now, was born. So
yeah. What date is that, if you don't mind sharing?
It is December 30th.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Yeah, so right before the new year.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So it's like that new year, like milestone, like right before the new year starts. So it's like definitely something to celebrate. Well, at that time, I mean, now it's like, as time goes on, it's like, okay, this is just me now. Right. But like the first year or two, it was definitely call for celebration. So,
Right. Right. Cool. Okay.
yeah. So tell us a little bit about your transition journey from beginning into who you are now.
Yeah. So if it's okay with me to start about just to share a little bit about my upbringing, I think it really shaped like when I transitioned and why I transitioned. So my parents migrated to the US and entered the country as undocumented folks with my two older siblings. I had two older brothers. And then once they settled here in San Diego, they had me. And I was born. And so being born into a mixed status family where like my parents or my family's all undocumented and I'm the only one that has that protection and that privilege of like, well, I can't necessarily be deported, but my family can. So what does that mean for me? That really, I mean, that experience, I would say, really kind of had me and all of us in a survival mindset on a day-to-day basis, right? Which makes it hard to tend to other things that maybe we need to work through, or that like other mental health needs, other um, just even basic healthcare needs were kind of put to the side, right? And so I share that because as life went on, as I grew up, I did experience family separation through my oldest brother was deported, and then later my father was deported. And so that really propelled me into some more survival and needing to work and go to school. And so what I knew is that like I was really unhappy in my body and didn't have the language for my transition as a teenager. But I knew that I wanted freedom. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know what that looked like, but I knew that it was going to be through school and through doing better, whatever that meant. I just knew I wanted better for my life, right? From what like the opportunities that were given to me as a younger person. And so my transition really began when I was 25. And I started learning some language of like, okay, I think I'm non-binary because I've never felt primarily just male, but also not just female. Definitely not female, but also not just fully male, if that. And so what really resonated with me was kind of the two-spirit experience and like learning more of like Native American two-spirit people, and how they were actually leaders and healers in their communities and their societies. And I was like, oh man, like I've always felt like I've carried some sort of like understanding that maybe other people can't necessarily give, right? Being able to have been socialized one way, but felt maybe socialized as a woman, but really felt more masculine, and like those, like embodying both just gave me a different perspective of being able to empathize with people who are both masculine and feminine. All that to say that when I was 25, and that was in 2017, my oldest brother, who had been deported previously, was murdered in Mexico. And that really propelled me into like, whoa, like grief, right, is immense pain. And what I've learned in life is grief, where there is grief, there is also eventually new life. And to me, that new life was my transition. And me being the man that I knew my brother to be, me being the man that I felt a calling to be, but stepping up and taking him with me as part of my transition, and like looking for him and his guidance as I've, decided to start hormones, which stabilized my mental health in a big way, I was also going through the training of becoming a therapist shortly after my brother's passing, and was moving through my own transition. So my medical transition, along with becoming a therapist, really shaped me into understanding how trans people's mental health is in alignment with our gender identity, and being at peace with it and finding healing and finding joy and following our desires, right? And being authentically ourselves. I've been saying a lot of words. I'm wondering how you're receiving some of this. Or
Yeah, I think that's amazing what you saying about one thing that stuck out to me. You said transitioning is stabilizing your mental health. You want to speak on that a little bit, especially as a therapist? Like, would you like to speak on that a bit about how important it is for like maybe somebody that's listening that doesn't have a desire to transition? Maybe they're not a trans identified person, but like talking about stabilizing mental health, like how important is that for a person when they transition?
Yeah, I mean, and as a therapist, I believe that doing our own work is part of being a therapist who can actually hold space and be in the process with somebody who is doing their own healing, right? As a therapist, I approach my work as somebody who is guiding and walking the walk with you, not necessarily telling you where to go or what to do, right? Like that ultimately is the client's decision. And so I say that to share that was me doing my own healing is an important part of my work with clients. And if I'm not, finding or doing the things I need to do to have a stable kind of stabilize my mental health, then it's going to pour into my work and it's going to impact my work. And so as like the trans guy in me, not so much the therapist, I took to kind of understanding like what was causing me the discomfort, what was making me unhappy in this body, what was the dysphoria that was actually making it really hard to leave the house, when menstruation maybe set in or PMS was coming in, right? And this is before any hormones, before any social transition. And I was listening to your podcast about courage right before the most recent one, right?
Yes, yeah.
And I think that as trans people, we have a lot of experience with courage, or we need to, right? We end up having to learn how to like solidify that skill time and time again. And I took to, and in that very experience, I think in mental health is like getting real and with what is the pain, what is the distress, which I think is really hard to do because sometimes it makes it even more real, like naming it, right? It's like, oh, okay, well, like I've actually never really like addressed my dysphoria, which it's a lot. It's just like physical responses that my body would have to like, I'm nauseous, I have a headache, just talking about it,
Yeah.
And I learned in grad school, I had a professor tell me, based on what you're describing to me, hormones have proven to help and kind of be like a supplement to the dysphoria that you're experiencing, like to help minimize this distress. And I was like, whoa, okay. Like I guess I didn't think about it as such, right? I think people think hormones and it's like, oh, you just want male privilege, or you just want to like, I don't know, bulk up, or you just want, and it's like, no, actually, this is what is providing me with the energy that I need to get through my day. And I actually feel the most congruent in my body and with my internal sense of self. And so to not have, I guess, what was all that gender noise of dysphoria, to start realizing, because I started really like on a microdose, I was like, I'm gonna do the non-binary approach. I just want subtle masculinization, right? And then I started and I was like, wow, it feels really incredible. And I think I started recognizing my power as a masculine person and presenting more masculinity in society, and realizing like, okay, like I can use this as a way to like change the ways people like experience masculinity for better,
Yeah, I think also it's like in explaining too. I think you answered it well, but also in explaining too how important it is. Like just like you said, people think, oh, you just want male privilege or you just want to bulk up, but like not realizing that it's I like the word you said congruent. It's congruent with your body, congruent with your mental health. It's all in alignment.
Right.
It's and it's like the starting hormones just closes that loop for people.
Right.
For the most part, for some people it does not. But
Right.
in my case, and I what I'm hearing from you is that it closed that loop for you.
Yeah.
It's like that missing link into something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I want to add to that, Sean, that as I feel really fortunate that, not only I had folks that were in my program that were attuned with gender affirming care, right? So thinking about hormones how is it improving the livelihoods? How is it making the lives of trans people better, right? And recognizing that hormones are important for mood and stress regulation, right? And so when we don't have the affirming hormone that is congruent to our sense of self, we're going to be in distress, right? And we're going to only know that feeling of distress. And I think for our trans experience, sometimes we become used to being in distress, and that is just our baseline, right? So it's hard to imagine anything beyond that. And it's scary to imagine transitioning, right? Like, I don't know if it's going to help me. Like some people say it helps them, right? I hear that a lot. Hormones are important for our mood and stress regulation. And if we are struggling with depression, anxiety around gender stuff, oftentimes, at least in my experience, hormones was a way for me to start stabilizing some of that depression and that anxiety. Mm-hmm.
I know that I talked on a previous episode about different levels of transitioning and how one thing or another doesn't equal the trans experience in its entirety. So what would you say to someone that's listening and like, well, I identify as trans, but hormones is not something that I would like to go and move forward with. How can I help with stress and this how I'm feeling? What other means would you suggest for someone that doesn't necessarily want hormones?
Yeah, I hear that quite often as well, right? People aren't necessarily ready, or like it's not part of their transition right now, or they just don't want it, period. In those aspects, we focus on, well, is there present dysphoria? Is there present distress? And sometimes there isn't. And then in those cases, it's like, well, who is it that you aspire to be? Who is it that when you deep down check in with like how you see yourself and kind of what makes you happy, what connections and what ways of connecting bring joy to you, then that's kind of what we center it around. Some folks are more like it's a social thing, right? Like, or it's voice training. And then that's what, makes them kind of reach the levels of like, okay, like I don't necessarily have heavy dysphoria around my voice, but I didn't need to do hormones to kind of reach that, I guess that level of minimizing the dysphoria around the voice, right? For some folks, it's how are we presenting, right? Or becoming more comfortable in being, or presenting more genderqueer, right? Or yeah, it really kind of is dependent, I think, on the individual experience. But to echo that, hormones doesn't mean that, or being trans doesn't mean that you need to transition in the sense of like taking hormones or any medical sort of intervention, right? But there are ways to other ways to minimize dysphoria that aren't just hormones. It could be binding, it could be tucking, it could be voice training, it could be for our trans femme folks, trans women, like facial feminization, right? Other procedures that maybe alleviate some of that dysphoria that isn't just addressed through hormone therapy. Yeah.
So in daytime, your profession, you are a gender affirming therapist. Am I correct?
Yes.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I wish I would have had a trans therapists. I think that's important. I mean, it may not be accessible because, right, it's not, how hard is it to find a trans identified therapist? But I think it's important to know that someone shares the same experience as you. So tell us a little bit more about your career as a therapist.
Yeah. Well, can I share, before I get into that, share a website that folks can maybe turn to if they're looking for a trans or queer
Absolutely.
therapist? So the National Trans and Queer Therapists of Color Network is a search engine for kind of like Psychology Today, but for trans and queer therapists of color. So you can look up any therapist, any queer therapist that's in your state who is providing therapy. So I'll even share that link with you if you want to drop it
absolutely.
in your website.
Yeah.
In the notes. So they're a great search engine if for anybody looking for a therapist or trans therapist of color. And how did I get into this work? Well, I think it was seeking healing from my own experiences, my own lived experiences that were very intersectional, right? From family separation to like loss and like, a violent loss of losing my brother. But this long yearning, Sean, for connection, a long yearning for connection from my earliest days I could remember. I just was like, I just wanted to sit down and have a meal at the dinner table with my family, but we were all always in our own survival that never happened, And so I'll start with 2017 and how challenging, it was to grieve my brother's death. But something that I think that I've always, from a young age, been challenged has been put into situations that are really painful, but been able to come out and be like, I don't want that, Maybe my pain threshold over time, hopefully, I like to think is getting smaller and smaller because I'm paying attention to the cues a little bit more. But wanting better, wanting connection, and wanting to heal and to not be in toxic dynamics. I think I learned how to be in codependent relationships that were not serving me, but I needed them for survival. And so realizing like, I don't ever want to be in that position. And what do I need to do to make sure I'm actually healing, right? And I'm not repeating those same patterns of violence in my adult life. So for me, what that looked like was going back to school to get my master's in counseling. I didn't think I wanted to do clinical work. I thought I wanted to work in like student affairs and work at a university, which there's a part of me that still wants to, but I'm realizing how important, I think the numbers of our suicide rate for trans people were like, I couldn't wrap my mind around it. Like I would hear it and I was just like, wait, that's real? Like, and then starting to see clients and starting to see youth and starting to work with youth and young adults and realizing like, wow, like we really can feel really alone in our own journeys, right? And feeling like, okay, I think this is a calling. Like I've never really known what the clear path of where I'd be at in my adult life, but I knew that living authentically and then being, having a life of service was what I wanted to do. And so I think that's how I found myself in this position. Grateful that opportunities opened up for me to work under somebody who's been doing gender affirming work for like the last 15 years and is knowledgeable, is well resourced. And so she's taken me under her wing, and it's a blessing to have somebody who believes in me, cares about me, and like is teaching me a lot about gender affirming work and mental health, and the different ages, adolescents, young adults, and then adults.
So how is therapy different in the different stages, do you think, for someone that is adolescent experiencing with a trans experience versus someone that's a young adult versus to someone like myself, who is a much older adult at 41. Like how are the levels of the therapy different for folks?
Yeah. So it's actually really incredible. I think even from my own experience to work with youth who have parents who are supportive, because I'm in private practice. So to keep in mind, in private practice, folks want to see you, right? Folks are seeking your services out. And so oftentimes I'm not necessarily faced with parents who are like, oh, I don't know if I'm not going to do that. Like parents are seeking to put their kids in this type of care and like trust us, right? And trust our guidance. And so working with little ones is, kids know. I mean, you knew at a young age, right?
I think I knew. I don't think I didn't know. I transitioned later in life. So I transitioned when I was in my 30s. I don't think that I knew about the trans experience per se, but I knew that I was different.
Right.
And not having that outlet to talk about being different and how I felt different. And I did it in a way where I acted out. I acted out a lot.
Right.
And not understanding it. But as I got older, I was like, wait a minute, this is what all this is about. Right. Yeah.
Yes. And now having to go back and tell that little kid, like, it's, we don't need to act out anymore. Right.
That's so important. That's so important. I think, and my therapist, actually, because I believe in therapy and I talk about therapy a lot in my episodes of how important it is. And it's important for the healing. And I think that, yes, having a little bit of grace and telling your younger self, you think that, oh, I'm grown now. That younger self is no longer here, but actually it is. Mm-hmm. And until you move through that healing, you have to actually heal that younger person. So you have to tell yourself, move with grace and, talk to that younger part of yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Why are you acting out? What's going on? What do you need? Right.
Yeah, exactly. You got to be gentle with your younger self, but that younger self is still here. Hey, this is Sean Aaron, the host of Dem Bois Podcast. Are you enjoying the podcast so far? Great. I'm glad that you are. Would you consider donating today to help support the continuation of this podcast? As you know, this podcast aims to serve as a platform to highlight and amplify the voices of trans men of color and share our transition stories. The podcast not only aims to amplify trans men of color voices, but it also raises awareness around our lived experiences. You would like to donate? Where can you donate? Great. I'm glad that you asked. Link in our description will take you directly to Network for Good, whom we've partnered with in order to collect donations for the podcast. Or you can visit our website. On the website, click the donate button, and from there, you are able to donate directly to the podcast. All donations are tax deductible. What does the donations go to? Oh, I'm glad that you asked. Your donation will help to support our production costs. We are working with Jasmine from Pink Lady Productions that brings you this awesome content. And also, we pay our guests an honorarium. Pay our guests an honorarium? Yes, we do. Why? Because as trans men of color, we would like to support and uplift each other and honor the time that's given out to come here and share their stories. So if you love this podcast, share and donate. See you on the next episode. Take care. So my next question is like, what about someone like me? You're like, okay, I transitioned in 2013.
Yeah.
So it's been a long time, right? So it's like, what would you recommend for someone like myself? As far as therapy goes, do you think like once you transition, okay, you're done, you don't need therapy? Like, well, how do you feel about continuing with therapy even long after transitioning into your adult life?
Yeah, no, I mean, so my work, I meet you where you're at, right? I am going to be curious about, and by the way, congrats for having been, transitioned in 2013. That's almost 10 years living authentically as yourself. Like,
yeah, I'm
yeah.
on math. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, point being, like, it's, I think it's gotten somewhat more, we've been more visible as the years have gone on. In 2013, I don't think we were very visible. So, props and shout out to you for doing that back then. To answer your question of, I think therapy, it is a lifelong process. I think for me, I see myself being in it always, but taking breaks because we can't always be focused on doing the work, right? Life's going to happen and then we revisit, right? So that's how I see it, is working on yourself, taking some breaks, live your life, okay, stuff is happening. You need that space again. Let's go back, process, unpack, heal, right? Repeat. So to say, if you were to show up in the booth with me, and that's what I refer to the space, right? In the booth, I'd be like, well, like, what brings you back? What is it that has been going on with you? You've transitioned, doesn't mean you're done. There's other lived experiences that we have. There's stuff happening in the world still that directly impacts how we feel, right? And so let's talk about it. How are you taking care of yourself? Which is I think one of the first things to go out the door when life gets really busy. But I think one of the most crucial and revolutionary acts for us as Black and brown trans people is to really take care of ourselves, or not just our mental health, but our physical well-being as well.
Yeah. So you're saying that it's important even later in life to continue with the work of yourself. Right. So you consider therapy a self-care technique?
100%. Yeah. 100%. Just one of the many things that we need to, keep up with our maintenance of caring for ourselves.
Very true. So what is your support outside of therapy? Like, what does your support system look like? I know you mentioned your family, what does it look like now? Is it more chosen family or your blood family? How does that look for you right now?
Yeah, that's a good question. It is. It's a lot of chosen family. It's a lot of wonderful friends. And this year I told myself what I really need for my healing is I need space from spaces and people that are still filtering parts of me for their own comfort. And so instead, I'm only going to center prioritizing being with trans and non-binary people, or people who, like my chosen fam, who I don't have to filter parts of me. I could just show up as all parts of me. And it's not a problem, right? Or people aren't necessarily made uncomfortable. And so doing that has really given me what I need to be able to go back to some of my blood family and say, hey, this is who I am. Because right now it's still what I call a tacit subject. Like, we all know, but nobody talks about it. And I'm ready for them to start seeing me as the mijo, as the sobrino, as the nephew, as the son that I am, right? And it's been a work in progress. So I realized I needed that space and to immerse myself in community with people that do love me and care about me, so that I can then go back and have the capacity to be like, hey, mom, like, I've been telling you I'm your son and I need you to get with the shits here. And it's her own process. She's trying. But I think something for my mom is really the way people cope in our culture is alcoholism, or what was it? An addiction to religion. And my mom has been an addiction to religion. And so you can imagine having a trans son, right? You know?
Yeah.
And Sean, just being able to recognize that has been what that was, a big sigh. Like, okay, that's what I'm up against. It's not that my mom doesn't love me or that she doesn't want to see me, is that she's been through so much stuff and she's clinging on to her religion because that's what's gotten her by. And right now she doesn't know how to integrate her religion and her son. And that's okay. I'm going to help her figure that out.
Help her get it together, right? Yeah, that is a good topic. Actually, we could go on and on about that. Like, let's talk more about that, of like that addiction to religion. I think that is, I've never heard anybody say it like that, right? Like an addiction to religion. And it's like, it's also a survival mode, because just like you said, she used it as a way to get through and make it. And a lot of time, my mom was super religious as well. I talked about that when I came out, of how, I was damned to hell and all of that. So what would you say, I don't even know how to tackle this question, because religion, that's a whole nother beast like that. it's hard to fight with somebody. I remember once I asked my mom the question, she kept saying, Jesus, this, God, that, God, that. But I'm like, but how do you feel? Like personally, outside of all of that, what's your personal opinion? She had none.
Right.
So what would be your suggestion to someone that's like, oh my God, I listened to this, like, oh my goodness, my parent is addicted to religion too.
Yeah.
Like what would you say to someone like, because you're still dealing with it yourself, right? So it's still a work in progress for you, but how would you help someone else to like tackle that, to deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of power and relief in being able to just name it, right? I think that's what happened for me, at least. Like, I was speaking to an elder in the community who works with parents, Spanish-speaking parents, and she's the one that pointed that out for me, and I was like, wow, just naming it, like, okay, that's what I'm up against. It's not that my parent feels this way, is that her backbone has been this religion, her safe place, her faith when she's been, lost her firstborn son violently. Like, I can't see her children right now because of documentation status. I'm able to go see her, but my other brother can't, right? And so, like, just immense pain that I can't imagine she's experienced, and this is what has helped her get through, right? So I think what I would say to somebody is really just looking at the situation for what it is, and this is what we're facing, right? It's in separating the religion addiction from the parent, because then I think you the way you were sharing your conversation with your mom, but what do you think? What do you feel?
Yeah,
that is what I think it is labor that falls on us as the trans people, to have grace and patience with them, but also challenge them and call them in the ways in which you called your mom in, right? But we need to have that capacity to do that. And so for me, what that's look like is, I need space first. I'm gonna go feed my soul, feed my spirit, love on myself, be with people that love me. And then I think I'll be able to come back and integrate these parts of that. I want my mom in my life. She's hurt me, but it really hasn't, she hasn't really fully understood me. That's why. So I'm trying to help her understand me.
That's so important. I think, and I don't want people to get it mistaken of like I'm saying, damn to religion. That's not what I'm saying. I hope that's not what you're saying.
Yeah.
But I mean, but if it was, that's your opinion, and you're free to that. But I want to say I agree with religion in a certain aspect. I'm not a religious person, but if that's what you need to be a better person, then by all means. But when you're talking about addiction to religion, it's where it overtakes your own opinions and your own values, and it's kind of murky. It's not separated. And I think religion can be used as a guiding point, but it shouldn't. I won't go there. But I won't go there.
It can be a guiding point. It shouldn't be your identity.
Yes. Well said. Yes, absolutely. I think, my mom had a hard time, and I really resonate with you saying you had to separate yourself and take some space, because I remember I used to go to my mom's house. My mom lives 5 minutes away from me, but I don't go there that often. I could literally look out my window and I could see where my mom's house is. Like, but I don't go there. But I remember some years ago, I would try to make her understand. And my partner at the time, when I came out of the house, because she used to go with me, and when I came out of the house, she was like, "Do you realize what you do every time you go in your mom's house?" I'm like, "No, what do I do?" She's like, "You're a totally different person." She like, "Your voice changes, your mannerisms change, the way I don't even know this person." Right. And I had to take a step back, and I'm like, "Oh shit, I'm modifying myself to please them. And I'm not being myself. I'm not being authentic to myself." And that kind of shook me a bit. So I took some time away, and I didn't go over my mom's house for a very long time. I didn't call her for a very long time, because I needed to be around people who loved me for who I was. And I didn't have to change and shift and act differently So then when I did re-enter into my mom's life, I was able to stand more solid in who I was, and my voice didn't change. My mannerisms didn't change. You know what I mean? So I really understand what you're saying of like needing to take a step back and to take care of yourself first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Solidify, be a little bit more sturdy next time you walk in there. Yeah. I want to speak a little bit to that, Sean, because that level of code switching that you were doing, right, is it's a skill, but then to some degree it can become a maladaptive skill, right? It's a skill in the sense that we learn how to do that for our safety, right? For maintaining relationships, because we need relationships for survival. But it becomes maladaptive because what's actually happening is we dissociate in those moments. We're not really ourselves. We're dissociating from parts of who we are. And that further perpetrates not being authentic. And when we are trying to be authentic, it feels wrong. For that very reason, we need to take the space because it's confusing for our internal sense of self. Like, wait, having to do that back and forth, right? But it is also a need that we have to do sometimes for survival. So it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah. Something that I want to touch on. So as a non-binary trans person, trans-identified person, you want to talk about that a little bit more? Because I think that a lot of times folks think that, you know, when we transition, we have to be one way or the other. It's just this way. It's just hormones. It's so rigid, you know, and I feel like people don't express their own side of their trans identity as someone that's maybe like non-binary or gender non-confirming, or, you know, trans masculine may not be someone's full identity. So would you like to share that a bit about how that works for you?
Yeah. I think for me, I've always felt not fully one way or the other, right? I definitely was not female, but I also definitely wasn't fully male. And as I've masculinized, as I've socially and medically transitioned, I feel masculine leaning. I am more masculine presenting, but I still have this knowledge and this energy and this wisdom that is centered around my previous lived experience, right? And so I carry that with me. And most days, if you were to ask me, I feel masculine, you know, I refer to myself as a man and coming into my manhood. And some days I'm like, nope, I'm just, you know, non-binary today. Today, more neutral stuff feels better, right? I think it also leaves space for some gender queerness it feels like an expansion. Like we're looking at it as a spectrum. Like I am masculine leaning for sure. And masculine language feels good. And so does neutral language. Because there is a fluidity to my experience as a masculine person that I feel like men don't necessarily capture. And so that's why it's not like being fully male and just male doesn't feel fitting, but I do feel like a man. And it's beautiful to be a man in the ways that I'm learning my manhood and sharing that with other men. I wanted to share real briefly about, actually, I was just on a retreat with Brown Boy Project, which I know you were a part of too. It was a Brown Boy Project where I was like, whoa, like masculine of centered people, we are literally like everywhere. And it was great. I realized like I will never feel the depth of loneliness that I maybe once felt as a brown boy. Of like, nobody gets me, nobody gets this experience. And instead, it was a group of masculine centered people coming together to talk about how can we have healthier forms of masculinity, right? How can we, it was liberate our masculinities. And I think that for me, my non-binariness is very much doing that, is liberating my masculinity. And it can look like any which way for me.
Yeah, I know. I've had another brown boy on here, and I like it. So the Brown Boy Project. Would you like to explain what the Brown Boy Project is?
I'm new to it, but yeah, if I'll share a little bit of what I know.
Okay.
Is they are a organization who pours into masculine obsessive folks to be leaders and work on leadership development, to go back into their communities and continue doing the incredible work that they're doing.
Mm.
Um, would you please add to some more of that?
No, I think you hit it. You right, and I think it's definitely an intense leadership development for masculine of center folks, and that's where I gained a lot of relationships, a lot of friendships, a lot of confidence.
Mhm.
A lot of a Brown Boy Project has been came in a important part in my life, and it helped me to pivot into who I am now. I like to say in so many different ways. But it was a lot, like a confidence building, and just seeing other folks just like you, similar, and even with shared experiences, non-shared. I learned a lot. Like I can't even. It's hard to explain unless you're actually in that space.
Right.
And I know it was told to us once leaving the space that people ain't gonna understand this space because they're not here, and it's true. So it's kind of it's really hard to put into words sometimes, but it is definitely an incubator for masculine of center folks to hone in on their leadership skills and abilities.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. A word that comes up is it felt sacred too. Like,
Sacred. Yes.
yes,
Yes.
yes,
Sacred and safe. It's a very safe space.
yes.
And brown boys, I think when we say brown boys, well, it's just like folks that have been through this leadership retreat. But when you meet another person that consider themselves a brown boy, it's almost like a family. It's like, it's like a badge of honor type of thing. It's like, I see you, we family, you know what I mean? So
Yeah,
it's like, yeah. So
yeah.
do you have any advice that you would like to give to someone? Any like last words of something that you feel like someone listening needs to hear?
Hmm. I guess the first thing that comes to mind is, center your healing. Center your healing in whatever way that looks like, in whatever way is accessible to you for the time being. Pour into yourself. I think about Audre Lorde's self-preservation is an act of self-indulgence. It's an act of self-preservation, right? And that in and of itself is revolutionary. And I think as Black and brown trans people, or just trans people of color, that is what's kept us moving, right? Think about our ancestors and how now we have access to care, and just the history of, how our medicine has tried to be erased. Our medicine has been gatekept. Mental health has stigmatized us, right? But we've persevered, right? We're still here. And we've done that by being able to also tend to our needs, right? To make sure that we are here tomorrow. Because we deserve that, and we deserve joy, and we deserve love. So pursue your desires, pursue your authentic self, and pour into your healing.
I love that. Pour into your healing. So important. And it's on a continuum. Healing is on a continuum.
Yes.
So this is a part of the show where I like to ask the guests a random question. So I have a list that's growing. I added another question the other day. So now the list is at 23 questions. So pick a number between 1 and 23. The question may or may not have anything to do with what we talked about today. So
bet.
Yeah.
Can I also ask you to answer a question afterwards?
Absolutely. I'm open to that. All
right. I'm going to do number 8.
Number 8 says, if you could change one thing in your life, what would it be?
I would, excuse me if this is really big, but I would change that border. I would eliminate that border. Gone. It's a fear-based wall that is not doing anything but causing pain and violence.
And death.
I think about our trans migrant siblings who are also, come to the border seeking asylum. And there's just a lot of happening. So I would erase that border.
I like that.
Remember, unify families and people.
Yes.
Yes. How about you? What number would you pick?
Oh, that's not fair. Because I know them. So I tell you what, you give me a number and that's the question I answer.
Okay. Your number is gonna be 18.
Okay. So number 18 is you meet your 18-year-old self. You are allowed to say only 3 words. What do you say? Yeah. So I meet my 18-year-old self. Ooh, my 18-year-old self was a mess. I was going through a lot. And I've answered this question and I don't remember that answer, which is good because then I got to come up with a different one.
Yeah.
I think if I saw my 18-year-old self, I would say, love yourself now. That was what stuck out of my mind. Love yourself now. I waited years to love myself. 41, I'm just now starting to really, really like dig into loving myself. I think a lot of, I'm getting, super emotional, but loving myself. Love yourself now. Don't wait till you're 21, 22, 25. That's it for anybody listening too. Love yourself now. Yeah. So that's what I would say.
Yeah.
Mely, hey, you got me emotional. I don't like that. I wasn't ready for that.
It feels, it's uncomfortable, but it's important. So I
for
appreciate
sure.
letting yourself go there.
Yeah, for sure. My 18-year-old self was definitely a mess. And so, and that's like, right, we talked about earlier of speaking to that younger self and being gentle with that younger self. So that's definitely, it was like, love yourself. Love yourself now. And what I tell my 18-year-old self and I tell my 41-year-old self, love yourself now.
Yes.
Very important.
Yes. I'm glad that you were able to find that.
Yeah.
Come home to yourself. Yeah.
Thank you, Mely. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for being a guest here.
Yes. Thank you for having me, Sean.
Yes. Take care.
You too.
Thank you for listening to today's show. Once again, I'm your host. My name is Sean Aaron. Be sure to be sure to share this show out with folks in your networks. If you would like to connect with us, be sure to follow us on Instagram or Facebook. You can also visit our website at dembois.org. That's DEMBOIS.org. If you think you will make a great guest on this show, or maybe you have a question for myself or a future guest that you would like to hear answered on the show, please send an email to hello@dembois.org. That's HELLO@dembois.org. Until next time, take care.